So we've been doing this barbecue now for probably 5, 6 years, and it just keeps getting better and better, more fun. We keep adding different things.
Well, we started the barbecue because we wanted to get people out to our farm and show them that we can have a fun time together.
It gives us a chance to see people outside of the office where we can just be a little more genuine. I also like that our families are included because, my kids love coming to the office, but this is just next level for them with the face painting. And it's nice too because our clients get to know us, outside of the office.
The barbecue is probably my favorite event of the year. We do a lot of them, but the barbecue, you get to meet so many people all at once in a casual setting where people are enjoying food, drink. We have people dancing, and you just get to see clients that you don't see throughout the year.
Really, that's the way to have a great relationship with your advisor. We know you on a personal level and a financial level.
Oh, okay. Silence your cell phones if you remember to do that. Okay. Welcome. This is our new facility. For those in the back, the nosebleed seats way in the back, we need to get you some opera glasses or something like that so you can see all the way up to the front. Okay, this is our first attempt here at the pavilion. We have 4 speakers like normal, so we're going to continue on with that. Disclosures, anything that we say, you need to talk to your attorney, an accountant, and anybody else that make sure that what general advice that we're giving is good for you. This is a save the date, so you remember, just we'll be letting you know, but for people that are busy in the summer, June 6th is the date for the barbecue at our farm. Put it on your calendar that we sent out to you. Yeah, and if you've not been, it's a great time. Thank you. Yeah, the balloon lady here says thank you. Okay, we have survey and notes on the table. On the sheet underneath is your survey and notes. Can you pull that out and make notes? We're in the pavilion, and this is new, so we want to find out things like, do you like this facility? Do you like the food we're serving? Do you not like the food? What would you like us to serve if we don't have that available? So just let us know about that. And make notes, and then you can hand it in at the end of the program. So if you want to talk about estate planning or something like that, let us know.
Hey, Jim, what time is the barbecue due?
4 to 9, 4 o'clock. Yeah. Okay, last time I begged for Google reviews, and guess what? We have 27 Google reviews. Yay! Our competitor has 6, so we're doing much better. So when you Google like best financial advisor in Montrose, we show up first, so that helps. So thank you so much for those kind Google reviews. I appreciate that. Okay, and congratulations. If you're here, then you found us. if you have chicken on your plate, you're here at the pavilion. So again, just let us know what you think. This is, for us, it's much better with the audio, video, the new catering going on. It just makes our job much easier. So congratulations. And looking down at your plate, you have chicken. So I put the sign, this on here. You know, the food Nazi, no soup for you. Well, we're saying no lasagna for you. So sorry about that, but I had to throw that one in. Okay, we have a little sad news is Charity, our office manager that checked you in, she is moving to Florida in May. So we're sure gonna miss her. So make sure you say something kind and say, later on when you come in the office, make sure you say your goodbye. And then the next question is, who's going to replace Charity? Well, we have found somebody. Jaimee has just offered a job to a new office manager. She'll be coming in April. We haven't had a chance to get a photographer to get a picture of her, so I took the liberty to draw what she looks like. So if you see somebody that looks like that in the office, this is our new office manager, Rachel. So say hi to Rachel. Okay. And serious note, we have tax documents. The last line down here, February 28th. So tomorrow, is it tomorrow? Saturday. Okay, so you'll be getting the last documents, but most of you have all the 1099s that you need. If you don't have the documents, just call our office. Charity will send them over to you, email them, send them to your accountant, whatever you need. So, but all the documents should be out by now. Okay, we're going to talk about some serious stuff here. We're having you're hearing about it in the news, but there is so much going on with cyber threats, scams, phishing attempts, all these strange words, spam and everything else. Imposter scams too. So really try to be vigilant when you're sitting down at the computer. Be careful what you click on, especially emails. When you're getting an email you're not sure about, just delete it. If it's that important, somebody will send it again and say, you need to open this, but very rarely. And we send out reminders, but there's nothing you have to deal with. So just be careful there. Imposter scams, Schwab is mailing out to all of you in a Schwab notice all about imposter scams. And so please read this stuff and just be very, very, very careful. And then the other thing is passwords. We really encourage you. I know none of us grew up with computers, so we're just not familiar with all these passwords. The younger generation, Jaimee and Daniel and Nathan, they grew up with all that. We never did, so it's just hard for us to deal with that. On the table, when you leave, Charity has a sheet that says password security and memory strategies, so how you can memorize all your passwords. If you ask me what's a password for a certain company, I can tell you off the top of my head, and I change it every year. And it's not that hard, but it's a complex enough password that I can tell you what it is, and it changes every year, so no one can ever figure that out. So we have 7 pointers on how to change your passwords, okay? And if you're still having problems with passwords, I want you to watch this.
Technology is getting more complicated. I guess it's simpler to much. Remember when you used to be able to choose your own password? Because now you have to get approval. And they always kind of give you an attitude like, yeah, that password's not strong enough. That password's very weak. You're like, I don't care, just use it. Nah, I don't accept that password. Pick another one. So you put in a password, they're like, yeah, that password's too easy to guess. It's because you just saw me type it in. Yeah, pick another one. Yeah, you already used that password. Pick another one. I get writer's block when it comes to passwords. Pick another one. I think I'm out. I already used my birthday. I don't have any more. The criteria for passwords is ridiculous. Now your password must have a capital letter, a number, a character, a rabbit's foot, something your mom wore at her wedding. Sometimes they offer a password. That's kind of humiliating. Hey, dummy, you want us to just give you a password? Doesn't that defeat the whole point? Well, we won't tell anyone. You can trust us. We're a faceless algorithm created by a multinational corporation. We won't share your password. What? Are you winking? No. I just got some dust in my AI.
Okay, so we all can relate to that. That's the cleanest video I could find on passwords that I could share with you. So Jim Gaffigan, one of my favorite comedians. Okay, we have Nathan. We're going to come up.
All right. So as you can tell, that is not me, but Daniel decided to slip that in there this morning, and because he always calls me Mr. Rogers. And as any of you who have been here before know that Daniel and I are very much alike, but also very much opposite. So he thought he'd throw that in there, but I thought it was kind of interesting as I thought, okay, well, what is it about Mr. Rogers? And saw that he kept his weight at 143 pounds exactly to represent the letters of each word in the phrase, I love you. And I thought that was kind of neat. And also the opposite of what I'm going to talk about, because I'm not talking about anything I love, I'm talking about taxes. So I also saw this definition that is totally made up for intoxication, which is the euphoric feeling you get when you receive your tax refund. But when I think about that, it made me think, well, really then, I realize you get the hangover afterwards when you just gave an interest-free loan to the government. It doesn't feel so good anymore. So what I want to say is, as you're doing your taxes and getting tax returns back, really be mindful of how much are you getting for a return. It could be much different this year for things we'll talk about. So we'd like to know that. If you're like, hey, why am I getting this huge refund? Let's have a conversation about it. So one thing we're doing to minimize taxes is tax loss harvesting. So, you know, if you're not familiar with that, essentially what we do is sell something that is at a loss, realize that loss, and it will help offset the taxes on gains in other areas. So there's a specific rule that says it cannot be a substantially identical product, whether stock, bond, ETF. But it's a very loose definition. So there are a lot of things we can do to move from one fund to another that still gives you very similar type of investment, but it's not substantially identical. So really, you know, we're not going to move from one bad thing to another bad thing is not the goal. But in a market downturn, which we never want, but let's be honest, they're inevitable. It's a great time to kind of realize a bunch of these losses so it can offset a bunch of gains in the current year. You pay less taxes now, but then essentially whatever's left over, you get to carry forward year after year. Now it's limited on how much you can carry forward each year, but it can go on for years and years and years. So required minimum distributions are another major thorn in my side about making you take your money out because the IRS wants their money and they want it right now. And they are demanding it. And this is not my son, but I know that my son is very demanding. And I think probably the IRS is more demanding. But they don't care about your Roth accounts because you're not paying taxes on that. They want you to take money out of your traditional IRA so that you have to pay the tax bill. They need that revenue right now. So with that in mind, they also like you doing Roth conversions, which we'll talk about in a bit. So these RMDs affect you when you are 73, or if you were born in 1960 or later, it's when you are 75 years old. And the percentage you have to take at first is relatively small. I mean, theoretically, your account should be growing faster than you're taking the required amount out. But as you get older, that percentage starts to increase and can really start to draw down on your portfolio, which if you need that money anyway, who cares? If you're trying to preserve that money, tax advantage to go on to the next generation or to a church or a charity, then it's a totally different deal. So what can we do to reduce RMDs or to send out RMDs that we don't actually need the funds right now? We can do what's called qualified charitable distributions. So basically, this is where you take the money from your traditional IRA and send it directly to the church or charity and bypass the IRS entirely. We cut them out of the deal. You don't pay taxes. The receiving charity doesn't pay taxes. And the IRS is sitting there being sad, which makes me happy. And I'm picking on the IRS partly because my father-in-law used to work for the IRS, and he taught me a great disdain for them. So, and I love my father-in-law. It's a good, positive thing. So Roth conversions, I kind of mentioned this, and you're probably sick and tired of us talking about it, because I think Jaime's brought it up in every seminar for the past couple of years. It was a big deal we were kind of pushing prior to the one big beautiful bill that passed last year. It is still important, just with different calculations now. So like I mentioned, in a Roth IRA, you don't have to take the required minimum distributions. Again, the IRS doesn't care. They're never going to get tax revenue off of that because it's tax-free forever after you've moved it into that Roth. So Roth conversions, we could spend all day talking about, does it make sense, does it not? It's case by case. But cases where it often makes sense are if your required minimum distribution is going to be much larger than what you intend to take out for your own living, plus for charitable giving. And then another case is if you think you're going to be in a higher tax bracket later than you are right now, which we're in historically low tax rates. Are they going to be higher in the future? Maybe. Are they going to be lower? Probably not. So your risk of doing them is generally low, as far as tax rates changing. And another thing to think about is if you don't plan on using all this money yourself and you plan to pass it to the next generation, what tax bracket are they likely to be in at the time that they inherit these accounts from you? Because if they inherit a traditional IRA, they have 10 years to get that money out. Let's say they're in their prime earning years, already in a high tax bracket. Now they're having to take all this money out of an IRA. They could be paying crazy high taxes on it. Whereas if you now kind of work some of those taxes away, you could potentially save what's going to the next generation by a ton, and they could let it stay in that Roth IRA for 10 years of tax-free growth. Now, it can't stay in there forever. They do still have to take it out in 10 years, but they don't pay taxes. So one big beautiful bill, which, you could have debates all day long about is it beautiful or not beautiful, but it changed the calculation a bit on Roth conversions because it kept the tax rates we had in place prior. So they were at threat of increasing, but they kept them where they were. So it took a little bit of that pressure away. But it also added the new senior additional deduction. So basically, standard deductions can be large. I mean, we're talking mid 40,000s for a married couple, which is pretty significant. Now, if your income gets above 150,000, you start to lose a little of that extra 6,000 per person. It's not important you remember the numbers, just the concept. But now it's going to change the conversion of if you convert too much, you could start to lose some of that deduction. You start to lose some of your benefit. So we really do a bunch of math and really think through the situation. Does it make sense? So I thought I'd show you one of the recent examples of a calculation I did to figure it out. And I wasn't able to fit it all on this one page, but you get the gist. So one big beautiful bill, a couple things that a lot of people have brought up and been asking about is the Trump accounts. Basically, none of us in this room were born 2025 to 2028, but some of us may have kids or grandkids that fall into that category. All you have to do to get that money for the kid is either elect it on tax forms, it has to be the parent, not the grandparent, or there will be a way to sign up through a website later this year. It's not available yet. And it's a free $1,000 basically into this account. You can still open it for anyone that's under 18 and still make contributions. But let's be honest, other than the free money, it's not the greatest benefit for the vast majority of people because it essentially turns into a traditional IRA for that child when they turn 18. 99% of the time, there should be more money going into a college savings account, a 529, or a UTMA or some other sort of account for the kid. There's some situations where having an employer put money into these accounts could make. Generally, my advice is take the free money, forget about the rest, unless you're so loaded with cash you just really can't figure out where to put it. So another thing that's really interesting that hasn't gotten a lot of conversation is that even for those of you that don't itemize on your taxes, so you just take the standard deduction, which, let's be honest, the vast majority of us are that way. You still can get a $1,000 deduction per person for charitable giving. So just, you got to track receipts and everything to prove that you gave those donations. But even if you take the standard deduction, you can still be getting more. So if you're, already giving charitable gifts, this isn't gifts to family members, charitable gifts, just keep in mind that keep track of those and you'll be able to reduce your taxes even more. That's also a temporary thing as of now. So another way to reduce taxes on charitable giving is to gift a stock or a bond or some asset without selling it. So essentially gifting it directly to the church or charity. This sounds a lot like QCDs because it is very similar. So essentially, instead of selling the asset you own, so in this example, you sell something for $20,000, you pay tax on it, and you give what's left over. Instead, you just gift the asset directly over to the charity and let them sell it. They don't have to pay taxes, you don't have to pay taxes. So we see it all the time. There are people that'll sell stuff, we send money to their bank account, it turns out, oh, that money was just going to a church or charity. We could have just given the asset directly and avoided the taxes. So another one, and a lot of these come from recent examples. This one was a family member who had no idea that you get a $250,000 exemption on capital gains on your primary residence. So, and that's per person. So for a couple, it's $500,000. Basically what that means is if it's a married couple and you sell your primary home and you made a $400,000 profit, you don't have to pay any taxes on that. It's your primary home. So I had a family member who wasn't aware of that and was really worried about it. They also, the same family member, was really worried about giving to the next generation and wanted to sell a non-primary residence, an investment property, to a family member that would have ultimately just inherited that property later. That would have been a taxable gain that this family member would have had to pay. Whereas if they just wait until they pass away, that family member will inherit it and get a step up in basis, meaning if they sold it right at that value, no taxes. So generally avoid selling or gifting your properties to a family member if they're, if you're planning to give it to them at your passing anyway. Generally avoid that without talking to someone about it first. And by someone, I mean us or an accountant. So here's another big one of a mistake a client almost made. We were doing a retirement plan and kind of ran into this and started to realize, hey, a lot of people don't know about this. So I have been spreading the gospel on this one. So a lot of people know about the windfall elimination provision that was repealed. And so a lot of you in this room got a nice lump sum check. And hey, guess what? My benefits were, Social Security benefits were reduced all this time. Now I just got some of it paid back to me and get the full amount going forward. And that also affected the GPO, government pension offset, which affects spousal benefits. So someone who maybe didn't, actively work and earn the benefits themselves, but earned it based on being a spouse of someone in that program. So, generally it's going to be teachers, first responders, government employees. So, I almost forgot one thing here. The No Tax on Restored Benefits Act, that's regarding that lump sum. There's currently an act that's being looked at to potentially give a tax break to anyone that got that big lump sum in the prior year. I don't know that it'll go anywhere. And it seems very odd that they're just now trying to figure it out as everyone is doing their taxes. But just know that that's something that might come up. So The important thing to know about these spousal and widower benefits is that it is not automatically adjusted. People that are eligible for this are not going to get this happy little card from the Social Security Administration saying, hey, guess what? You're eligible for all this money. We're going to send it to you. Nope. If you don't know about it, too bad, so sad. So back to my example of the client. We were doing a financial plan, getting really in depth, looking through all these different things. He was ready to retire. She was ready for him to retire. They've wanted to be done for a while, not happy with their work situation. And so we're looking through everything, and I noticed there's no Social Security amount in there for her. I said, well, you know, what's her benefit? Oh, no, she's not eligible. Are you sure? I'm pretty sure she's eligible for something. Oh, no, she never paid into it. She doesn't have enough credits. Please just call them. Oh, I called them. They said no. Please have her call them. This Social Security person clearly had no idea what they were doing. The client is very, very smart, by the way. Social Security person, not so much. So he had never received anything in the mail. She hadn't received anything saying that she was eligible. She calls that next morning after our meeting, calls back, and is just overjoyed at the realization that she's now going to get $1,600 a month for the rest of her life. Almost $20,000 a year that she would not have gotten if she wouldn't have been educated on this. So I'm just telling everyone, you may not have $20,000 a year sitting out there for you, but there's a good chance someone you know does. And so just be looking into it. If you're not getting Social Security and you think you might be eligible, let's have a conversation. So, important to do financial plans. That's enough on that. We're going to move over to the investments now because that's an important piece of the puzzle as well. So the driving forces for 2025 is the same things we're all sick and tired of hearing about, the same things that you hear constantly on the news. And, are the tariffs going to cause inflation? Oh, inflation's not that bad. We need to lower rates. No, we need to keep rates high. And it's just this constant battle between Jerome Powell and Donald Trump. And both of them have some valid points. Both of them have some invalid points. The real problem is the uncertainty around those. So that was kind of driving markets where towards the end of 2025, we just kind of hit this plateau. Things are okay, not where, we need a little clarity. So bonds, on the other hand, 2022 is this big downturn here. Bonds got hit hard, but have come back really well. The graph may not make it look like they've come back well, but they're paying a great dividend and have really started making a good comeback. So savings-wise, we're still kind of sitting where we've been since last seminar, more or less, around that 3.5% on savings. It's a great place to be for money you need right away. We had some in the portfolios, but we've kind of reduced that and moved over to bonds. But I just want to remind people, over the last 10 years, money market has averaged 2.1%. Not going to outpace inflation in the long run. So commodities has been a very hot topic, mostly because of gold and silver. I can't even describe the number of times I've had conversations about gold and silver in the last few months. So I wanted to make sure everyone was aware. Almost every one of you, if not every single one of you, has a commodities fund in the portfolio, and precious metals is the top holding in that. So this is in descending order of what is in that particular fund. If you want to go more into depth on that, we can. I'm not going to waste your time with it today. But just know that you didn't miss out on this gold and silver rush. We've been in this for over a year. So one thing I'll point out on the bottom here is Bitcoin is also part of that, as they do consider it a commodity now. But when I see Bitcoin pop up, I know that's my cue to bring on the Bitcoin guy. Daniel, come on up.
question was, what are softs? Those are, I'm trying to remember if they are grains or, no.
It's not grains.
It's
basically a bunch of other farm crops. So like coffee.
Oh, coffee, yeah, sugar, soybeans. I can only remember so much. Anyway, thanks for throwing off my mojo. I don't know, how you guys like the stage? Do you like it or not, or is it good? I don't know. I'm having second thoughts because I feel really powerful right now, and I feel like I rule over you. So I should probably get down before I get in trouble. Okay. Be greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy. It is a very simple investment principle for all of us to understand, but as you are about to find out, it is very difficult to master. For the last month, as Nathan mentioned, silver and gold have just been pinging all-time highs. And about a month ago, Jaimee gets a phone call from a client. It was a random Monday afternoon. And this client tells Jaimee, sell everything out of our accounts, move it to cash, we're transferring it out of El Dorado. And Jaimee, being the lovable sweetheart that she is, oh my goodness, we're so sad. Why are you leaving? Did we do something wrong? Could we have done something better? And the client said, oh, no. We love you guys. We love El Dorado. You guys did a great job with our accounts last year. We want to sell everything and put it into silver. We told the client, we are buying at the top. Daniel's foaming at the in the corner, freaking out about volatility. He thinks it's going to have a correction. It's going to crash. Are you sure you want to do this? It's fine. That was on a Monday. And then Friday happened.
We do have declines across the board. All right, so Warsh is the nominee. Everybody knows that by now. Mm-hmm. The dollar's move today is interesting. Silver, let's just look at silver. Silver is getting obliterated. Gold is down too, but these have been, show now the longer view, so you can see the amazing, unsustainable, some have suggested, run-ups in all of this.
Mm. In one day, gold dropped 8%, silver dropped 30% in one day. Now, I'm going to take the liberty to make two very important points. Point number one, I don't care if it's NVIDIA stock. I don't care if it's Bitcoin or Dogecoin or Putin coin or Jesus coin, Trump coin, Epstein coin. And as we are now seeing, if it's gold and silver, if you are going to play games with market volatility and get greedy at the top, you're going to find out. And this is this biggest mistake that we see all the time and that we try to save our clients from. Okay. Now, the second point I'm going to make, and I'm going to say this with a little salt in my voice because I think I deserve it. But Daniel, Bitcoin's not a store of value. Bitcoin's so volatile. How can I trust something when it drops 30% in one day? Every argument I've had for the last 6 years about Bitcoin's legitimacy as an asset class, so every argument I've had about all the gold bugs saying that, oh, Bitcoin's not an asset, well, that argument just got thrown out the window. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but Daniel, silver is an industrial metal. They use it in computers and stuff. And I said, I know. And in the state of Texas, all these Bitcoin mining companies moved to that state so they use Bitcoin mining to provide power grid stability so that when Texas has a winter storm, Warren Buffett, who owns most of the utility companies down there, doesn't surcharge you out the eyeballs and sends you an electric bill for $17,000. Yeah, that actually did happen. And what was the point about silver? I don't remember. Anyway, so my point is, when we do quarterly rebalances, when we manage your money, okay, my job is just to get an idea of what's going to happen in the next 6 months to a year. I'm not going to be able to perfectly time it, okay? But if I can get an idea of what's going to happen in the next 6 months to a year, I can then make changes in your portfolios. We start shifting things around. We sell stuff at a high. We buy stuff at a low. And then regardless of what happens in the market tomorrow, because I don't care if you're Warren Buffett or Jimmy Buffett. Hey, someone's cell phone's going off. I don't care if you're Warren Buffett or Jimmy Buffett. No one knows what a stock, a bond, or a cryptocurrency or what's going to happen the next day. But what we can do is diminish that risk by just doing normal quarterly rebalances. Now, the other thing I want to say, because regular everyday investors, just like yourselves, oftentimes cannot handle the extreme emotions of greed and fear, me putting like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% allocation of Bitcoin is not the biggest threat to your financial plans or your investments. Sometimes it's yourselves. And that's what we're trying to help you avoid. Everybody wants to buy gold and silver and Bitcoin at the all-time highs, but nobody wants to buy it when it's at a 40% discount. So what are some good examples of what it's like to be greedy when others are fearful? Sir John Templeton on the left over here. He's one of the founding members of Franklin Templeton Mutual Funds. He made his money buying Japanese stocks after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Dave Ramsey, to this day, still talks about the exuberant amount of money he made during 2008 buying real estate quarter on the dollar. And back in 2022, so last year I said that, what did I say at the last seminar? I said that, or last year I told clients that my price prediction for Bitcoin was about 125 to 150,000. It topped out about 126. And then at the last seminar, I said that going into 2026, I was expecting to see a correction in Bitcoin's price. We're now trading at about 70,000. So what I'm doing today is no different than what I was doing 4 years ago back in 2022, the last time Bitcoin was going to die, you know what I mean? So just walking in, figuring out what's a nice, easy, simple allocation, and just start doing those normal quarterly rebalances. So we're doing the same thing we haven't done differently for the last like 30 years. So just a couple Bitcoin news, because I promised you guys this last time. David Solomon, CEO of Goldman Sachs, longtime crypto skeptic, admitted that he owns a little bit of Bitcoin. And then while Jaimee and I was at the seminar in Denver last year, Rick Rooster, the CEO of Charles Schwab, stood on a stage in front of a football field full of advisors, and he said, digital assets, Bitcoin, and tokenization is the future, which is why later this year, Schwab is going to announce Bitcoin trading on their platform. So expect to see that sometime soon. Check your greed, check your fear. I don't even know how to transition, so I'm just going to go on with the economy. So what's going on with the economy? You guys remember Sesame Street? So this episode of the El Dorado Financial Seminar was brought to you by the letter K. So we are in a K-shaped economy. What does that look like? Well, the simplest picture I can draw for you, this top line of this graph is the S&P 500 index. The bottom line is the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index. So what are these two? So Daniel, I get the S&P 500, that's the stock market. What's the Consumer Sentiment Index? What the index does is that it asks American consumers from the top, middle, and lower income class evenly, and they ask, how are you guys feeling about the economy? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? How optimistic is the American consumer feeling about our economy? For the last 5 years, we're down 26%. So what is this picture trying to tell us? Those of us with assets, those of us with high enough incomes to withstand the negative effects of inflation that are able to afford to buy assets like stocks, bonds, gold, silver, Bitcoin, whatever, they're doing fine. The middle to lower income class, on the other hand, because inflation is still elevated and high and causing a lot of problems, they're having to squeeze their budgets and squeeze every drop out of every orange they have. And when you peer into the data, it starts to confirm it. The top 10% of income earners in America make up about 50% of the spending. So I want you guys to think about that for a second. There's about 120 people in here, 120. So if we opened up the little micro El Dorado financial economy and we're, wheeling and dealing and we're starting businesses and we're trading with one another, 12 of us make up half the transactions in this room. That's crazy. Now, that's just for the upper end of the American consumer. Inflation is still high. I don't care what the politicians say. I don't care what they say during the midterm election season. But medical services, college tuition, childcare, Medicare, housing, that's another big issue. Food and beverages, vehicles, furniture, everything is still high. If we took the consumer price index and averaged it for the last 5 years, we're sitting on an average of 4.4%. So that's just for the last 5 years. The annual rate compared to last year might be closer to 2%, but it's, in our professional opinion, we always take that number and double it, so we always assume it's higher. And that kind of gives us a little bit more accurate read on it. So another indicator of why we're in a K-shaped economy, you see it in the stock market. So I know it's really busy up here and it's kind of hard to read, but I'll kind of explain it. So this is showing you the stock performances in 2025 for premium brands and budget brands or budget stores. Where are we? So Starbucks was down 5%. Target was down 24%. Natural Grocers down 36%. Sprouts was down 37%. Lululemon, which is a premium brand athletic wear company, they were down 45%. So all the middle to lower income classes that might have been able to shop at Target, 5 years ago, their budgets are getting squished, and now they're not shopping at the premium brands anymore. They're having to make the best bang for their buck. So instead of Target, now they're going to McDonald's, which was up 8% last year. Ross was up 20. Walmart was up 24. TJ Maxx was up 28. Dollar Tree was up 64. Dollar General killed it with almost 80% return last year. So everyone's shifting out of premium, and they're going for budget. And then also when we look at the jobs numbers are interesting. So for 2025, mining and lodging was down, manufacturing was down, wholesale trade was down, transportation, information tech, we got professional business services and government. All these sectors were down. The only sector that was responsible for us for having positive job growth last year was healthcare and social services. If you take out healthcare and social services, we have negative jobs. So the US consumer is getting pounded with inflation. They're having their budgets squished. They're very annoyed about the home affordability. I just saw this morning, if you go on Google, there's ways for you to track like what's the top trending Google search, and the Google searches for can't sell a house or can't sell a home has peaked all-time highs this yesterday, surpassing 2008 and COVID-19. So home affordability is a problem. You can, I don't know, maybe a 70 or 100-year mortgage will help. So home affordability is a problem, inflation's a problem. Consumers are also very anxious about AI and robotics and how they're going to disrupt the job market. Is there any point to going to school for something if you're just gonna get replaced by a robot? That's that kind of stuff. And even if you look, and speaking of jobs, even if you look at January's most recent data, I don't remember if this has been revised or not, healthcare and social services are the main driver. Okay, so I gotta go very quickly because Jaimee's gonna start yelling at me for time. So this slide right here used to say the Supreme Court of the United States ruling on Donald Trump's tariffs. Last Friday, to a 6-3 decision, the IEEPA tariffs, those emergency power tariffs that Trump enacted in April of last year, those got struck down. So to a 6-3 decision. And if you guys remember election betting odds, one of my favorite websites of all time, if you Google electionbettingodds.com, it's a really cool website. They had $15.4 million in bets saying that there was a 77.5% chance that the Supreme Court was going to strike down the tariffs. Now, what's going to be the fallout? Well, so far, Trump, all he did was he said we're going to enact Section 122 of the Trade Act of '74, and the max he can tariff is about 15% for 150 days. Congress has to extend that, so he's trying to claw back as much as he can. So what's been the fallout of the Supreme Court ruling? Costco, even before the ruling, put in a lawsuit against the Trump administration. They want their money back. FedEx is doing the same, and then more than 1,000 companies have filed lawsuits in U.S. trade court. So they want their $180 billion back. Now, that's not the fun part. The fun part is going to be how the global community, all these other governments react and how they're going to start clapping back over trade deals. The EU was supposed to vote for solidifying a trade deal with the US. They put a halt to that, and they're already going to start coming back out of the woodwork and start renegotiating again. So that's going to be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if China, India, Japan, Vietnam, Brazil definitely. So we'll see how these countries react now that the tariffs have been struck down. Couple of last things, international stocks. One of the things we've done in portfolios is that we've increased our international holdings, our international stock positions. Now, what the mainstream media want me to tell you is because US stocks are very expensive, thus we need to go and find some value in other markets. One of the big reasons, and more or less the real reason why we're increasing international exposure, is because one of the largest, so the biggest export out of the US last year was non-monetary gold. So when you have a bunch of dollars out in the international markets and they're coming home to roost and gold is our biggest export, that's less dollars out in the global market, okay? So if you have like a bank or a corporation or a government, they're all wheeling and dealing and trading oil and gold and silver and other stuff with each other, and they're using dollars for those transactions. So if I'm seeing a bunch of dollars come home to roost, that's less dollars out in the market. When there's less dollars out in the market, well, gee, I need to get dollars to buy, for Japan to buy oil from Australia. So what am I going to sell? Well, I'm going to sell dollar-denominated assets, which means that you start selling U.S. stocks and U.S. bonds, which if any of you are invested in the U.S., you don't want that to happen. So when you have a global dollar liquidity shortage or crisis, stock market, bond market's at risk, so that the Federal Reserve or the Treasury Department will step in and basically they'll just print money, inject that liquidity out in the international markets. The dollar will drop in value relative to the yen, so the dollar down, the yen go up. When you buy international stocks like, I don't know, Toyota, you're not just buying shares of a company, you're also buying the yen. So as shares of Toyota goes up, so does the value of the yen when the dollar decreases in value. So it's compounding interest squared, essentially. Okay, one last thing, and I'm going to pass it off to Jaimee. I heard a lot last year about AI bubble this, AI bubble that. Are we in an AI bubble? Is it .com 2.0? What's going on? Daniel, are we in an AI bubble? And here's my answer. Sure, I guess. I mean, okay. Does it matter? No. Let me tell you why. For decades, we were taught that the economy dictates what the stock market does. I'm actually here to tell you it's the stock market that tells the economy what to do. And Washington, D.C. understands this. It is actually legitimately documented that when the stock market and the bond market go down, tax revenue goes down. If the stock market and the bond market go up, tax revenue goes up. So between Wall Street, the central bank, and the government, they got every incentive to keep this party going regardless of what happens with inflation. So now I know here's a little bit of bluntness, if you allow me. If there's anything I've learned from 2008, bailing out the big banks because they were too big to fail, sending everyone stimulus checks during COVID, handing out PPP loans like it was candy, bailing out the regional banks in 2023, my basic argument and my basic perception is when in doubt, bail them out. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Okay, Daniel, bailing out the American people and bailing out, banks, that's one thing, but you seriously think that like NVIDIA or all these other tech companies, even if there is an AI bubble, that the government's just going to bail them out?
New tonight, President Trump announced today that the United States will buy 10% of Intel stock, making American taxpayers the largest single investor in the troubled semiconductor company.
It's on Intel. Intel stock is higher by about 6%. On news, the U.S. is going to, or maybe already has, taken a 10% stake in the company.
The White House taking a 10% stake in Trilogy Metals, securing energy and mining projects in Alaska.
Shares of U.S. rare earth producer MP Materials more than doubled since the company inked a deal with the U.S. government back in July. You can take a look at this right now. As part of that agreement, the Department of Defense became the company's largest shareholder.
Government ownership and administration of the means of production, that's a bold strategy we haven't seen in a long time. When the market goes up, it typically lasts about 5.3 years with an average return of 254%. When the markets go down, it's relatively short, on average about a year, and it only drops about 31%. Check your greed, check your fear, get greedy when others are fearful. We got everything under control. Give it up for Jaimee.
Oh, hi guys. Thanks for coming here. We're glad you guys made it here to the pavilion. Sorry it's a little dark. We're trying to figure out like what's the best way that you can see the screen but see us. Lots of topics, really relevant, talking tax, talking investments. And I was like, gosh, how do I transition from what Daniel and Nathan and Jim were talking about to me? And this is the best that I got.
And now for something completely different.
That's all I got. This is way different. So we are like flipping, doing a 180. So today I get to talk to you guys about estate planning. And how did I get this topic? Your guys' little surveys there, last time we said, what do you want to hear about? There's little check boxes. And we were blown away by the number of people that put estate planning down as something you want to hear more about. So that's why today. I'm really passionate about estate planning, so that's why I get to talk about it. So as we think estate planning, there's lots of different ways to slice and dice it, lots of considerations. I'm going to start off with, okay, what do you do? What things do you need while you're still alive? Everyone should have a power of attorney. Okay, if you're over 18, you need a power of attorney, so everybody in this room needs one. And what it does is it just says who can act on your behalf if you're not able to for some reason. Could be lots of different reasons. And there's two main kinds of power of attorney. One is medical. And so that's basically, if you're in a coma, who's going to make decisions for you? What medication, what life-sustaining things, all sorts of that. Who makes those medical choices for you when you can't? And then another one, I think medical gets covered a lot. Your doctor usually brings it up. When you go to the hospital, they bring it up. So a lot of you have that. But the other one that you forget about is general or financial. And it's actually, I would argue, almost more important than medical. And so what this does is it lets somebody make decisions for you if you can't around legal issues, real estate transactions, just normal financial decisions. They can be on your investment accounts, your bank accounts. If you're going through medical stuff, you still need to have your bills paid, right? Like life doesn't stop. So it just allows somebody else to help you. You can do two different things. You can have it where it only starts once you're not able to make decisions for yourself, or if there's somebody that you trust, you can set up one that's just, they can do it anytime you need help. But definitely need to get these set up. It doesn't have to be the same person when you're thinking about it. Like if you have, for example, like 2 kids and one's a nurse, well, I really hope that you set them up as medical, probably because they have the most knowledge about it. If you have another one that's like a financial advisor, Jim, Kaka, they could help out with your general financial. So it doesn't have to be the same person. It can be, but it's okay if you're like, okay, who's going to handle this scenario the best? Who's going to handle this the best? To get these set up, usually medical's pretty easy. We even have a form for it, but your doctors usually do, or the hospital. The general financial one, that one can cause lots of elder abuse if you don't have the right person. So that's one that usually you have to go to an attorney to set it up. So just throwing that out there. But if you don't have this, get it set up. If it's not the right person that you want anymore, change it. All right, continuing on, and I slightly mentioned this. This kind of goes with medical power of attorney a little bit, but I want you all to also have a living will or advance directive. It's called a lot of different things, but basically what it is it hits all these things, and it really talks through what are your wishes, What treatments do you want? And the reason you do it is down here. It reduces family disputes. It gives you and your loved ones a peace of mind. I've seen and heard lots of scenarios where something happened to mom, and then you have 5 kids that are here fighting about what's going to happen. Do you try to keep her alive with all these things? Do you let her pass? Everywhere in between, and it causes so much turmoil in the family. So if you have this set up, it's not fun to think about. None of this stuff is fun to think about, but it's a gift to your family. It helps keep those that are making really hard, almost impossible decisions, it helps keep them in check, like this is what they wanted, and it helps prevent all this inbreeding, all this fighting. So if it's not for you, it's for them. Do it for them. I have a tool for you about this, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so those were things that you need while you're living, right? But then estate planning, the other part of it is what happens when you're no longer here. So there's different ways to transition wealth. We'll talk about those. The first thing I'm going to mention, and for a lot of you in this room, it might not apply, but it depends on what state you live in. So the United States, right, 50 different states, all sorts of different rules in each state. When it comes to estate planning or property ownership, there's 2 different kinds. There's common law, which is everything yellow, and then there's community property, everything, and all these blue. So if you live in any of these states, for those of you watching online, I know y'all watch it, so anybody that lives there, or if you have property in one of these other states, it's just an important thing to know and plan for, because the way they divide things up can be really different. So just shouting that out right there. A lot of this is kind of broad, so I'm sorry, I want to dive into it, but everybody has a unique situation, so we're going to keep it broad. There's a lot of info on this slide, sorry. If you want to see any slides specifically that you can't see, let us know and we can send you the deck. But basically, generally when we're talking, this blue common law state, that's Colorado, and then we have the orange community property. Just generally, this isn't specific, completely correct for every single state, but generally common law states like Colorado is usually not too bad of a state. If you pass away, they have joint ownership where it can pass to the surviving spouse by default sometimes. And then with community property, sometimes it's, okay, the surviving spouse gets some, and then the spouse that passed away, their assets, would probably have to go through probate, or might get split between the surviving spouse and the kids. There's a lot of things that can happen. So moral of the story is states have different rules, and just don't do nothing, because then the state's just trying to do the best they can and following their defaults, saying, well, I guess this is what our default is, so this happens. I've had some weird situations where, a husband passed away and half his assets went to the kid, and the wife was like, oh my gosh, I need this money to raise this kiddo. So know what state you're in, and then that can dictate what we do. All right, so when we're talking about passing assets, a lot of times trusts come up, right? And you always hear people, I have a trust. And trust can be good, but not everybody needs one. So here's some considerations to say, hey, should you think about a trust, right? So if you have out-of-state property, for the reason I had just talked about, protecting assets for your heirs. If you have a blended family, that can be a very, very good case for the need for a trust. It's just protecting, where you want your funds to go. Spendthrift, so if you have a kid that you're like, oh, they might spend all their inheritance in one year, or you're worried about the financial decisions they're making or will make, a trust is a good reason to set that up. You can add a lot of stipulations in it. Special needs planning, and then also privacy, which I'll mention in the next one. But these are some really good considerations on why you might want a trust. Like I said, not fit for everyone, but these reasons could mean that it's worth it to have more in-depth discussion about it. Usually trust equals you have a lot of control. So here's kind of when you pass away, there's 2 main ways, right? You have a trust or you have a will. So this kind of breaks it down, what's the pros and cons sort of each. So with the living trust, a lot of people like it because it avoids court. You don't have to go through probate. Probate takes a lot of time, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of stress, it's not fun, honestly. So trust will avoid probate. Will, you have to go through it. The trust is private because it's just handled within the trust, whereas wills, probate, it's a public process. So some people like the privacy better. Here's kind of part of the trade-off though. A trust, it costs more, usually up front, but a trust costs more. It takes an attorney time to write through all these stipulations, what do you want? And attorneys are paid by, the hour or the minute, right? So if it takes them a while to create, that's why it costs more. Wills are usually a little bit more affordable. This is part of it when we're comparing will versus trust, but you don't always, there's another part that factors in, and that's right here, it's beneficiaries. So will and trust can kind of help, they're important to have. However, if you're in Colorado especially, you can have a will, and you don't have to do a trust to make sure that money goes to who you want. You can do it through beneficiaries. So you can add beneficiaries to a lot of things, and I'm going to share a few things that hit a lot of people's. You can add it to your vehicle. You can add it to your bank accounts, your investment accounts. If you have investment accounts here, please make sure you have a beneficiary. Life insurance, your house, I think that's all I have. So you can add beneficiaries to all these things. And a lot of times as you get older, you simplify your life and this is what you have. So if you have beneficiaries on that, you probably might not even need a trust. I have a story though about beneficiaries. I have way too many stories, unfortunately, but I'll share one that might be the most egregious, honestly. It's back when Daniel worked at Schwab, actually, and there's a guy, he had an investment account, set it up, put his girlfriend on the trust, or not on the trust, as a beneficiary, listed her. Then, they broke up, he got married, had kids, fast forward 40 years, he passed away. Then his wife calls Schwab to tell him, and say, okay, how do I get the assets? And Schwab says, you're not the beneficiary. His girlfriend from 40 years ago was the beneficiary. I just got goosebumps and I've heard that story before. What I'm trying to say with that, please, please, please check your beneficiaries. Make sure they're right. Check them on all these things. I mean, I could literally spend all afternoon telling you guys story upon story about when they weren't checked. So check them. I'm getting anal about it and I'm making everybody that comes in check them because I've just heard too many stories. So please check them. So speaking of inheriting things, one day, son, all of this will be yours. Doesn't that look like a great inheritance? Oh boy, it's like an episode of Hoarders. So we talked a lot about like organizing your finances, right? What estate planning things do you need to do? Think through your possessions. There's a book that I want to share. Some of you guys might have heard about this book. It's called The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. Weird title. But let me explain the brief premise because the title is very shocking. Like, what? What it is, and it's something that they do in Sweden a lot, and it's started to take a hold here in the US, is when somebody retires, what they do is they retire and then they spend the first little chunk of their retirement going through their house, going through their possessions, and doing this, what they call a death cleanse. What do they like? What brings them joy? What will bring their kids joy? And what doesn't? And that's what a great way to start your retired life is you're not bogged down by all this garage full of junk. You're starting your retired life by things that really truly matter. And so it's helpful to you, but it's also really helpful to your kids. So a lot of this is it's not fun stuff to think about, it's not fun to do, but a lot of it's a gift. So here's a few things that they say, areas that you could highlight if you're gonna do this. And if you're already retired, it's not too late, you can still do it. So you clean through basically furniture. This is an interesting one. Oops, having a backup plan for your pets, right? You guys love your pets. It's nice to have a plan for them. But then you're basically going through all your assets and saying, what do I need? What don't I need? What pile? Is it a keep, a donate, a discard? And then at the very bottom, I had to throw estate planning documents. So I said, okay, create your power of attorney, create your will or your beneficiaries, any of that stuff. That's part of it. So organize that stuff while you're doing it. I threw a lot of things on there that were physical items. This also is, I just want to say, simplify your finances too, right? That's part of it. That's honestly, cleaning out somebody's house, that's a lot to do. This can be super overwhelming too, right? If you're the spouse that manages the finances, what if you pass away? Is your spouse going to be okay? I've had a lot of these conversations, so think through, is there a reason for why you have these accounts everywhere? Do they need to be that way? Do you need to simplify? And I have homework for you guys. We created tools. We didn't want to just say, here, you should do this stuff and leave you. That's not fun. So on the front desk, or the desk that you checked in at, Charity has all of these lined out along with Jim's password thing. We have this vital documents locator that just helps your kids know where everything is, and you can kind of track down, okay, here's where my will is now that I have one. Here's where my power of attorney is. Here's my statements for my accounts, all that jazz. We created this bill tracker too, thanks to one of you in this room. And I've had a lot of people really like it. And basically, if one person manages all the bills, this is just a great place to put where are all those bills ready to go if you're not able to. So just kind of more organizational tool. I also took the liberty of printing out the Colorado vehicle beneficiary form. It's really easy. So if you want one, you can have one. And then this one, I also have this at the front. This is basically almost the living will. So they call it the Colorado MOST form, which is medical orders for scope of treatment. So what kind of life-sustaining things do you want to have happen? And it's bright green for the reason that it's easy to find. Because usually when something medically is happening, you want it easy to find. You don't want to sort through papers. So that's also at the front. So that concludes this part. So take your survey, throw any feedback you have about lunch, general feedback, any questions that you have if you want to meet. Also, we're thinking about doing some lunch and learns at our office, maybe focusing on tax and estate planning. So if that's something you'd be interested in, put it down there and we'll contact you once we get that scheduled. And if you don't want to hear me talk estate planning, don't check it on the box next time. So figure out, list what you want to hear more about on that little survey. And I think that's all I got, right? All right. Thanks, guys.